Welcome to our next lesson on solving two-step equations. In this lesson, we will solve two-step equations by using our golden rules. Remember the two golden rules for solving equations? The first rule is that you will use inverse operations, and that means that you'll use opposite operations, the opposite operation of what's given to you in the equation. The second rule is whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side, and that is so that you can keep the equation balanced. Now, as we begin this new lesson, we're going to look at a model, because in our previous lesson we solved one-step equations, which means that we learned how to use one step in order to isolate the variable and solve the equation. But now we're going to have to use two steps. So let's take a look at what this might look like using our scale and our models. Remember, the squares represent the variable and the circles represent our constants. So here I have 3 squares, which means I have 3x, and I have 1 green circle, which means plus 1. On the other side, I have 10 green circles, so 3x plus 1 equals 10. This is the two-step equation that I'm now going to solve. So think about what you've done in the past to solve any equation. The first thing you did was you think about what is the opposite operation. In this problem, I actually have two operations. I have 3 times x, and then I have plus 1. So I have multiplication and addition. So which one do I do first? Well, the first thing that you want to do is get rid of the constant. We want to get rid of our circles first. That's the easiest one to get rid of, and it's the one that we have to get rid of first because it's not associated with the variable. So since I have 1 green circle, and green means positive, and I have plus 1, what am I going to do to get rid of plus 1? Hopefully you remember that you're going to subtract 1. We're simply going to take it away. So think about what we just did. We took away the green circle, which means that I subtracted 1 from the left-hand side. But our golden rule says whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side because I need to keep the scale in balance. So I'm going to take away 1 green circle from the other side of the equation as well. And now you have to ask yourself, what am I left with? Well, I'm left with the 3 x's, which I see on the scale, and I don't have any green circles left, and that's because 1 minus 1 is 0. So on the right-hand side, I had 10 circles, but I took away 1, and now there's just 9 left. So in that one step, I've been able to reduce this equation down to a one-step equation. So this was step 1 of the two-step equation. Now 3x equals 9 should look familiar because again this is now a one-step equation. So we say to ourselves, this is 3 times x, and I know that I need to use inverse operations, and that means that I need to divide. So if I divide these 3 squares into equal groups, if I divide by 3, how many squares will be in each group? So if I divide by 3, I will have 1 square left in each group. So I would end up with just 1 of the x's when I divide by 3. And then we need to say, well, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side as well. So since I divided my left side into 3 equal groups and I divided it by 3, I also need to divide the right side into 3 equal groups and divide the number 9 by 3. And if I divide the number 9 into 3 equal groups, how many circles are in each group? And that answer is 3. So I end up with 1x equals 3, or x equals 3. So I've been able to isolate my variable and get x by itself by first subtracting 1 from both sides, and then in the second step I divided by 3 on both sides. So this is where we get the two-step equation. First you add or subtract, and second you multiply or divide in order to get the variable by itself. In our next lesson, we will work through another two-step equation where we will not use the model, and we will work through the equation algebraically.